A-shaped post-its.
Oh, wow.
How cool is that? James, I should send you them. They're only £1.
Which James?
Well, yeah, this is true.
That's true, both James, but I was actually thinking of Linton for these.
I do have a lot of... I've got some that are not the most... I think they're for pages, aren't they? But I do still use them as post-its.
See, I write too untidy for little notes.
Yeah.
I write like a 4-year-old. I'm so... And also, I write... Like, this is the notebook from today. And honestly, if you see... Like, look... You don't need to see everything that's in it, but you see the way I never write using the lines.
I'm just going to give everyone a fair but slightly delayed warning that we are live. Because it did work when I wasn't expecting it to. I thought there was a go live button to press, but there isn't. So
Cool.
Talking to the internet as a whole, except for LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is awkward.
Is it?
It makes my life difficult at times when trying to stream.
Makes everybody's life difficult at times.
Yeah, I wanted to do a nice little newsletter, and I thought, I'll do it on LinkedIn because, that's where most of my connections are. And it only lets certain people do that. And apparently, well, it's either because A, I'm not paying them, or B, I've not published enough articles, I guess, in the raw sense to qualify. So I thought, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it can be quite awkward. So is there a way we can say, should we say hello to everyone? Is there a way we can see who's watching?
Well, there's probably Twitter's the best one. So we are live on Twitter.
We are live on Twitter. Does anyone see? Is anyone going to say live? I had my phone on airplane then, just to be polite. Such a geek.
Okay, live on Twitter, and there's the link. So feel free to share that out.
As if I'm going to be able to do
that. So any one of you is going to share it, then I'll reshare it.
I can't.
Let's not reinvent.
Share it on Twitter, James, and then I'll say hello to tweets. To tweeters.
Tweet.
I can't cut and paste that. I haven't got the bandwidth tonight. It won't even let me copy it. So
I'm on a virtual machine, and I would have to copy it across like a couple of different devices.
I blame Twitter for switching away from Periscope because it worked fine on Periscope.
Oh my God, how many conversations have I had about Periscope this week? What is going on?
They got rid of it.
I know, but everyone's like, Periscope's ruined. It's ruined. Anyway. Swap. Should I just go to Coffee Field and then it must be...
I'll just tag you all in it. That's the easiest way.
Tag us.
Tag away.
Oh, you too anyway. How are you, Sharka? You're right, mate.
I went to massage after 15 months.
Oh, deep tissue.
Yeah.
Ow.
So good. So good.
So good, but so much pain afterwards.
Oh, Saka, what's your Twitter? It's shark something.
It's triple underscore sh4 rk and then again triple underscore.
Because why make it easy for me to find you?
Well, you just do triple underscores. I'm sure that there's nothing.
I'm sure.
It ignores the triple underscores, which I never knew. So that's fun.
Huh.
Let's see.
So James, I'm pleased to see that you're wearing one of your colourful shirts tonight.
I don't have anything other than colourful shirts.
Can
anymore.
I ask, where's your where'd you get them all? I love them.
So it's
presume they're a custom job, are they? Commissioned?
No, they're not a custom job. They're from a company called Loud Elephant. And if you want a discount on shirts, and only on shirts,
yes,
but it does include shirts that are on sale, if you use code JBOR15, then you get a discount.
My coffee code. But can I just say, do you feel I felt such an absolute twat putting it on. But I know if I could get money off coffee that strong, I would be like, there is no way. I'm a Scouser. There is no way I am turning down money off that kind of coffee. Who said, call me an influencer and die? And immediately someone called me an influencer and will die.
I'll say I'm not an influencer.
No, neither am I. But if you're starting to throw, if you've got merch deals, James.
Yeah, I think you need to have followers in
influencer. No?
Followers in 4 figures to be an influencer, don't you?
I don't know.
Oh right, I've never even looked at your. It's rude to look, isn't it?
What?
Anyway, we are live.
Size of James's
James's anyway, we're live, everyone. I'm not getting any tags off you, James. But
you will do.
There.
Saka, I'm going to have to follow up with you because your Twitter handle is just messing with tagging.
So what's yours?
Oh, here we go.
I could. Oh no, that's another something.
That's why it's Shark with a 4, of course.
Shark with a 4.
James, have you had your post-lockdown haircut yet, or is that?
I didn't even have a pre-lockdown haircut.
Surely mine's the most shocking. I went from a complete skinhead to this, which
I think it's
I
mean, it's here to stay. Don't get me wrong, but I got to go to the barbers once, and then we went back into lockdown. So I've just had my girlfriend hacking at it every now and again to try and keep it partly manageable. But do notice I'm a bit warmer than I usually would be, which is interesting.
Right, we're as live as we're going to get. I can't really add any more streaming without being ridiculous. And I've got an eye on the various places, so if anyone throws questions in, I can pick them up.
Can someone tag me, because like I can't share it.
I'll tag you, babe.
Thank you.
I'll tag you.
Oh, we are all in black except James.
Yeah, but I don't do social engineering.
Is that a sign of a social engineer to be in black?
I mean, look at the panel.
I mean,
evidence suggests it might be.
I only wear black, man.
Black is best.
It's like Johnny Cash. He says, if you go into my wardrobe, it's black. There's nothing else there. It's true. Just go and go. I've got like 3 things that are not, and they all make me look hideous. So I might occasionally wear white, possibly blue, but that really is it. I do have a loud shirt. I do have a couple of loud shirts, but they're for the more corporate gigs.
I like that. Blacks for casual and loud shirts for corporate.
Yes.
Right, I'll do the quick introduction then. So, first security coffee house of the year. We're back. Normal sort of completely informal, no real idea what I'm doing setup. So getting together a group of people I thought would be really interesting to talk about a topic, and it's on emotional phishing, and you can blame James Linton for it because he made a comment and we had a bit of a discussion about it.
We will. It's on you, James.
And then I thought, let's get some people who know about it to talk about it.
Yeah, me not being one of them there. It was it was really interesting. I think I kind of phrased it wrongly because I was talking about do kind of scammers use emotional kind of states and things rather than sort of, because social engineering is such a huge tag and it covers so much. I should have been more specific really at the beginning rather than kind of clouding it, but I don't think it's something.
I'm just going to pause you quickly so that everyone
can
introduce themselves.
Out the gate there. It was sorry.
So let's go reverse alphabetical by first name. So Saka, who are you? For those who don't know.
For those who don't know, some others people might know me as a pirate queen. It will serve my alter ego while breaking into places. I met some other cool pirates like Jenny. So I do everything from social engineering, physical security, but I'm also part of the audit team here at DreamUp Technologies, where I do research and teach, for example, industrial control systems, how to hack them and secure them. But I'm also involved in DEFCON's biohacking village. So that's everything that's healthcare and medical devices, cybersecurity. And we are running really cool CTF. The call for papers is open if anyone is interested. And that is me. On to the next cool pirate, Jenny.
Oh, okay. Hey. So I'm a social engineer, 2 specialisms, psychological aspects of security and I guess of hacking and physical infiltration, which everybody must have heard that story by now, because I feel like I'm spamming everyone's feed this week, because I did a few interviews and they're all released in the same kind of week. So apologies for that to everybody. And to James.
That is,
Excuse me.
for me, that James.
For me.
That James.
For everyone watching, I think that one. Because, inconsistent orders. James.
Inconsistent is fine with me. Yeah, I am inconsistent in what I kind of do, I guess, to some extent. Kind of, obviously, did the pranks on the White House and all that stuff. Then was fortunate enough to find a little place in InfoSec where I could settle down and kind of interact with predominantly and mainly BEC, so business email compromise scammers. Got to see all that side of those sort of threats, and then now kind of exploring awareness and things, just trying to help people be safer. I know it sounds a bit corny, but after having worked in advertising, I really want to do something that I don't know, helped others. Not that advertising doesn't, well, you know what I mean. But yeah, it just seems. Yeah, let's move on, James.
You make me laugh when you say that, James, because you're one of the only people I know who came to InfoSec to settle down. The rest of us are trying to leave InfoSec because it's too riotous or whatever.
I see it as this kind of thing that's always rolling away, and I'm like its best friend running behind it, trying to kind of find places to grab on for a bit. So it's it's a love-hate, but no, I find it fascinating, as I'm sure all of us do here. So I think that's the.
I also love the way James Board. Don't you love the way James Linton always throws in? Oh, was all that stuff I did at the White House, but then this is very cool shizzle, James.
It seems really weird when I look back on that.
Does it feel like ages ago now?
Yeah, I guess it does in a way. I mean, I was a very different person then as well, without being like corny about it. It was. My mindset then was, I guess, if you wanted to study an insider threat model, if somebody gets disheartened at work, they can start to stray a bit, and I strayed into sort of phishing people. But yeah, so it's a lesson for everyone there.
I just think there's no one better to do awareness than someone who's done something like that. So it's very cool. I think
the story is still the strongest thing, I think, and awareness, I'm finding out, is a really
friendly space with absolutely no rivalry.
Yeah. It's for me, it's like social engineering. You've got a human there that doesn't give a shit about making better security decisions. So in a way, you've got your own little narrative, and you've already sort of wheedled it down to just the bits you want them to learn that will make them actually safer. And then you've got to try and find out where you can kind of crowbar those in. So for me, it's similar to how I kind of approach the puzzle-like social engineering thing. So I guess that's what keeps me quite interested.
But just for anyone who doesn't know, when James says he was phishing, it was purely for fun, I think would be the best way to put it, not defrauding people, but some of the targets were interesting.
Shits and giggles, I think people would refer to it.
Okay. And
you're trying to find a little beat.
It's fine. It's after hours. I've got beer.
Oh,
This is the coffee
sorry,
house.
If I already swore.
No, James kicked that off.
Oh, James swore. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's
swear.
broken the ice on that. You're allowed now.
See, the thing is, I think everyone would just expect you to kind of go along and say, oh yeah, I did it because I wanted to see if places were more secure. And I thought, no, I'm just going to be honest and say that I enjoyed doing it. And, it felt nice to be good at something, which I think, the honest answer is probably the best answer, and you can understand why I was doing it more, I think. That and the fact I do get quite into things that I enjoy doing, so...
Can I just say that if anyone's interested in listening to James talk about this, I just want to promote my own show and my interview with James, because it was a real, I think we really spoke about motivations and everything, and coming through it and getting back into the industry. Sorry to promote human factor there, but James's interview on the show is one of my favourites, as was yours, Sharka Darling. We went into everything, of course.
I made a special background for your show.
Yeah, I know. And I appreciate it, darling.
I can find the episode. I'll tweet it out so that people can have a look at it. Okay. So the vague topic for tonight, or at least the seed for it, was this discussion I had with James. Because I've got this idea that phishing is largely about emotional response rather than intellectual. And we got into a bit of a talk about, do they use this? And I think, James, you were saying they're not deliberately using it. They're using proven techniques which happen to do it, which I'm not disagreeing with, but I'm not here to join the discussion. I'm here to just listen, pick up on knowledge. So
it's funny, James, it did look like you were joining it then.
I know.
Only briefly to introduce the topic.
Doesn't it hurt your arse sitting on that fence, James?
It does. Actually, it's a kneeling chair, so it's even worse than a fence.
Come to the dark side.
We have cookies.
Bad for my teeth. But throwing it out there, phishing as an emotional attack. Open floor. Yes, no, maybe, completely wrong. James is an idiot. Don't specify which one if you say that. Thoughts? Jenny and Sharka.
I have a question. Okay, here are we talking about it from the point of view of the cyber criminals, social engineers that are doing it for work, or the victims?
Am I meant to answer that? You're meant to be the host. Don't just...
Yeah, James is going to answer that. It's fine.
I originally said it in sort of response to seeing a few sort of titles of articles now and again that said a scammer will target your X gland or, your X levels type thing. Because I'm a very literal person, my head would instantly go, that's not correct. Scammers don't kind of target that. So it was not a misinterpretation as such. It was just, it seemed to me like we were giving the scammers too much credit for making decisions that they just weren't doing. They were kind of, that was happening, yes, but they weren't sitting down and going, right, we've got, this big sort of polystyrene heart, we're going to target this today, and then all that. It was more, especially in BC, which is obviously where my sort of knowledge is focused, it is more sort of modulaic the way they put stuff together, using, asking for something as soon as possible because that reduces the amount of time the scam is open to be rumbled whilst it's unfolding. And also, it does apply pressure when people make mistakes when they make pressure. But I'm not sure how much of that was deliberate at first, or it could have been somebody's deliberate intention, but scammers beyond that are rubbish generally from what I've seen. And they just copy and paste stuff. And obviously you can hack together what's going on there, but I think we're just giving them a bit too much credit to say that they're targeting that, and you can actually be a little bit successful as a scammer just by using this sort of let's keep moving stuff around and see what works type thing, and not having a really good concept of what you're doing to the victim.
Well, I would say that it depends on what kind of scammers, or if it's like organized crime, or because I did the research about the pandemic, because I did recent talk for IC Squared Emma, and so I was looking at how the social engineering attacks changed, and it was like the first couple months of the pandemic, it was like a scare tactics. So it was like, yeah, this is really bad. These are the news. So people were scared. So they were using that. They were looking at what people are doing. They were also reusing like an older malware that was dormant for a couple months, because it was just they realize the situation people are in, and that there are more people at home, and they were targeting that. But then you could see that towards September, when the kids started going to schools, the tactics changed, and the themes of the phishing emails became more about kids going back to school, fake school information email regarding the pandemic and stuff. So I would say this is more targeted and this more organized crime, while depends then I guess that the scammers, it's probably very easy to just go on the internet, find a template of some sort, and then just send it, and then that might not be planned.
Well, I mean, I think, look, it's like any industry. There will be, once certain information's out there, there'll be a race to the bottom. And of course, you can, because of the nature of scams and cons and phishing and stuff, there will always be people who lack imagination, who will cut and paste and use those things. And James is absolutely right. If it works, why change it? Why fix it if it's not broken? But I think even in that, they may not even realize it. And I think this is the key point that I agree with James on, is that they may not even realize, they may not say, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap into certain cognitive biases. I'm going to tap into emotional triggers. I'm going to make sure that psychology, I'm going to increase the amount of adrenaline in this person. And we know that when adrenaline kind of peaks, that logic fails. They're not going to necessarily think those things. They might cut and paste things that do it, but the effect is the same. And the effect will be that the person will have an emotional rather than a logical response. And I think even that is shorthand. But there'll be a response that is not in your best interest. It's not a thought out response. It's not a response in your own best interests. It's a response based on emotional immediate reactions. And in that sense, it's emotional, because if it was logical, we wouldn't do it. And so a lot of the time, I think we mess with semantics. And it's easy to label people as the scammers, the bad guys, in the same way that we're labeled the hackers, when we know that there's 1,000 flavors with sprinkles on top, and we all pick a different tribe. And I think that's really what it is. I think, I cannot imagine social engineering without psychology. But whether someone understands the psychology behind it sometimes is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, like a Formula One car, it's still, the driver doesn't have to know how to build a Formula One car to get it around the track, I guess. So,
especially if he nicks it. So if he steals it and just drives it around the track, it might achieve the same end, but doesn't need to know how it works or even why it works, right?
Yeah. And, if he's slower, then he knows that he needs one that's faster. So yeah, I guess there is not going to drift off down that. But
then that rather extended metaphor.
There is any decision that somebody makes, if they're being socially engineered, for want of a better word, emotional, even if it's, the smallest of things. Can you even make a decision that's not emotional, short of being devoid of emotion to start with?
It's very difficult psychologically, because emotion will be involved. It depends what you're trying to involve. Like you mentioned timing. If you make someone time bound, it kicks off all kinds of synapses that are to do with scarcity and to do with survival. So the human brain really hates the idea of having limited choice, because choice is linked to survival, it's linked to all sorts of things. So what you, when I talk about emotions and talk about psychological levers, it's kind of the same thing. It's just thought about differently, probably because I don't have the same skills technologically as you guys do. So I would think more carefully about, can I induce panic? Can I introduce some sort of cognitive dissonance that I know that they're going to act on, and then make sure that there's a route out of it. It essentially amounts to the same thing. It's just a case of, and not really for people on this call, but for the scammers, for people who are just essentially cutting and pasting and doing what they can. The result is the same. It's just whether they construct it properly. And that's why I said at the beginning, it reminds me of the film, if you know the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, there's a bit where the master car thief, they're stealing a car, and this kid puts a gun in their face and says, "Give us the car." And he punches them, and he puts them on the phone, he says, "You kids need better role models." That's what it is for me. It reduces that cutting and pasting. I'm not saying you support it, James, but I'm saying that cutting and pasting without thought reduces something to its very lowest common denominator. And it's a different thing than crafting a proper spearfish or a proper campaign or a heist that really focuses on the target and on everything that might work for that target. And that's the difference I see in it. And that, that's why I say it's a race to the bottom. And in the industry at the moment, there's a race to the bottom, both in physical and in lots of other areas of social engineering, because there are people who will, undercut prices or whatever and be cheap, because there's a certain amount of success you'll get without all that effort. I suppose that's fair enough, but I don't think it's what you do, and it's definitely not what I do. But I think that's it. It's the amount of intention that goes into the amount of thought and the amount of tailoring to an approach.
Yeah.
That I think you were talking about. That I talking about. It's like, how much tailoring is there? They might not even realize they're using greed, for example. They just know that people respond to that email.
Well, as a way of showing how little tailoring there was, we were actually, if we kind of intercepted, this was at Agari where I worked, if we intercepted an email and we were going to reply to it, we would completely anonymize it. So we'd switch out the person it was going to and the person it had gone from and send it back. And because, they are fielding that much stuff, it would always get replied to. It just dropped into their, all right, we've had a reply. Yep, I recognize the pretext that we used. Let's just reply to it. They would never even pick it up. If you replied using just one name, it would come back and it would just have one name in the display name. That's how much they were kind of.
But that would go to what Shah was saying about.
Yeah.
About depends on from whose perspective it is, but that is attention deficit bias. So we would say, and just cognitive overload. It's just like, you're talking about someone who can't pay attention to one thing because there's so much going on. So I would absolutely rely on distraction techniques as well to make sure that they don't notice. That the whole principle of sending someone something at 4:45 on a Friday night.
Yeah,
it gives a toss. You just want to go home. So, see the way I self-corrected the swear word there.
I told you it's fine to swear on
Don't
this.
say that to
You're
me.
allowed.
I'll do the swearing alphabet, which has never been done live yet. You don't know. You don't want to do it.
Do it later. It's fine. Shocker.
I really think that all of this makes me think of definitely of my beginnings. I started doing social engineering and physical security, and it somehow worked. It was almost like I tried my best, but at the beginning I was not aware of all the things, and then somehow it was working. And I went back. I started looking at why did it work, and then I went into studying all the psychology and stuff that actually goes into it. And I it could be probably said the same about the first shit and giggles that you did, James, because then it made you think, and you actually used it. It's part of who you are, what you did, but you went deeper into what you learned through that, and learned more about psychology and how it works. So I think that perhaps it's about all of our beginnings.
Yeah, because certain parts of email for me were demystified over that time. obviously when I tried the first couple out and it was in the workplace situation, I was really careful about how I sort of matched the tone of it was my CEO at the time and things like that. And then over time, as I did kind of more and more pranks, I realized how in a sort of, especially in the business world and even outside of that everyone has developed this sort of email shorthand to a certain extent. If you're stood in front of somebody and they said something to you and you said nothing back, or you just said received, or there's a lot of ways of responding on email that don't have anything read into it, because that is part of email. It just means somebody's a bit busier or things like that. So I think you can get away with a lot more on email in terms of having a lot less identifiable pertinent and personalized information. The smallest thing can make it personal, because an average BEC scammer, it's going to be of no use to them if they've been on your Instagram and found out you've got a horse called Jane, because you can't drop that in. It's sort of, but outside of that, knowing the kind of horse things,
I thought that was one of the most interesting things about what you did there, was the way that you mimicked that language so carefully. I mean, you don't realize how much psychology you used in those pranks.
Yeah, I guess
there was massive skill behind them, because we looked at them when you were on my show. I think sometimes it's that mimicry, and it's the for me it's always been attention to detail. And that's really why I say to race to the bottom, because I think when people are just doing it en masse, there's no attention to detail. And this makes me sound like such an old fart, but I'm like, oh God, you've got to work hard. The people I know who are really good social engineers work very hard, and you'd be one of them.
Yeah, and scammers are notoriously lazy and will do the bare minimum to get money. That's what they want, isn't it? It's money. They don't want to invest more time than they need to, or learn more than they have to, really.
James
so
B.
There's definitely,
sorry, I've interrupted you. Sorry.
There's definitely a kind of different stages to phishing, but the vast majority that I've seen tends to be this one size fits all, done on a huge scale, complete imbeciles behind the wheel on it. Which, does that even affect training to a certain extent? If everyone's thinking that everyone out there is some amazing super hacker when they're not, is that going to make you a bit more sort of, I don't know, giving up at the first hurdle that, we can learn this stuff, but it's pointless anyway because they'll, blast past us?
I think you need to be really careful, though, about that, because there's this whole argument about, is it a sophisticated attack or not? And it's kind of, I think it was Sophocles, wasn't it, that said, we are convinced by what we're convinced by. It doesn't matter if it's sophisticated or if it works, it works.
I'm going to come off the fence on that one, because I'm convinced that the constant message that it's a sophisticated attack, the scammers are really advanced, they're really good, it makes people feel helpless. And that is a massive, massive problem.
Yeah, do you know what the problem is, though, is that people like to say this isn't sophisticated when what they mean is it wasn't. I have people say, oh, that's so simple. Like, so I've done things that, like, we had kind of like no tech and no money. So how'd you get into a factory or whatever, or write a sign on the door saying leave the door open? That might seem, that's simple, but it's not easy. And actually, I would argue that's as sophisticated as anything else, because what I have to know is that will fit with that culture, that at that precise time, people will follow rules. And I have to take a chance on that and then time it. So I think, it depends who's doing the research. And I recall, I think it was Microsoft put research out there saying it was sophisticated hackers. And it was a few months ago, James, who said, well, hang on. And people said, well, this isn't sophisticated. These are, it depends on what's gone on behind it. If someone with proper research and resources says, we think this is sophisticated, whatever that 0-day action was that led into it, that might not have been, but whatever goes behind it's a difficult one. I think what all of this tends to come down to is it would be really nice to put everything into neat little categories and say it's emotional or it's not emotional, it's sophisticated or it isn't sophisticated, it's social engineering or it's not social engineering. The problem is the whole thing is grey. Everything's unique. Even those mass phishing emails, fundamentally, still come down to that transactional exchange at the end of it, of who clicks and who doesn't.
Yeah, effective or not effective, I guess that's the main thing. But no newspaper or media outlet is ever going to write X country attacked by mediocre cyber attack. It's just never going to happen because nobody's going to click on it. So we can moan at it all we want, but it's sort of defined by how we consume stuff, and it'd be very hard to row back from that and just have,
The bit that bothers me about it isn't so much whether it's described as sophisticated generally or whether it actually is or isn't. It's that there's often this sense given across to people who aren't in the field that this is some sort of magical occult technical or security wizardry that you as an ordinary person cannot grasp, cannot understand.
And then and then you're right, and then it's terrifying, and what do we do? And the police are drinking from a fire hose, and nobody knows what way is up and what you do about it. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I think it's like when people say there's nation states, and they say, well, you can't have a small business, an office, or a hairdresser or something worried about a nation state attack. But it's simple, and I know what you mean about that. But I think we have to be very careful that we're not simplifying the topic. I think what you say, James Bloor, we have to say the full names now. It's true though. That's all feeding into the FUD, which fundamentally pays a lot of wages, which is why it doesn't end.
Shaka, you were about to.
Yeah, because that's why I was asking at the beginning, from whose point of view are we talking? Is it like a emotional phishing as an emotional attack? Because I feel like if we are creating the narrative of something being too scary, or if we are doing, I'm sure that Jenny agrees, if we are doing in physical engagement where we are using scare tactics and people are walking away with fear, that's not exactly translating into good awareness. So I think it's part of it, the whole nation state thing. I think it's partially media. Some companies also do it just to excuse their how would I call it? So it would be correct. So when they are, it's not exactly sophisticated attack. They blame it on, then either they say it was sophisticated or they blame it on intern, right? So it's like that is a bigger issue in the industry. But I think where I'm sure that all of us are doing the same thing, where we are trying to make our clients informed, not scared, have a right picture of, as Jenny is saying, like, is it a small company? Obviously you are, well, depends. Is it someone who's working on a patent for a new COVID vaccine and it's a small company? Then yes, then they might be a target of a nation state. But if it's a small printer company somewhere in the countryside, obviously not. Yet I believe the latest research was that 70% of all CISOs are worried about nation state attacks.
Absolutely.
Phishing your employees as well became emotional when you saw the sort of poster boy for the ill thought out one saying that, you've got a pay rise or you've got a bonus. That, all right, it's a happy emotion, but the problem with that happy emotion, it seems fairly innocuous, but you could be happy because you've got the money to pay for somebody's medical bills, or happy because your debts have been cleared, or they don't think about the cascading from that and the effect it'll give when, because the thing with phishing your employees is you've got to also deal with the fact that that is the reality for them. They have received a pay rise if they believe it. That is the actual fact. The perception is entirely, they have a pay rise. and then you pull it out at the end as the person that's done this to them and say, you're a bit stupid because you thought you had a pay rise.
But that's
By the
why
way,
it's got to be
watch
called
this video.
sophisticated. That's why the Vic wants it to be sophisticated. It's got to be a sophisticated tap. Otherwise, I fell for something simple.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it as well. And also what I would say, and that is like the first few months, scare tactics work. People don't understand what emotions even are. Like, strictly speaking, in emotional science, if you like, there's only 7 anyway. And so greed, which comes with a promise of reward, wouldn't even be classed as an emotion. Neither, for that matter, would urgency or a sense of urgency. There are only 7. Now, I'm an Ekmanite. I go to Ekmanite, so I'll go for Ekman's 7 emotions, which I can list if you want me to, just to show off. So they're disgust, fear, surprise, contempt, anger, sadness, and happiness. Only one of them, strictly speaking, is a positive emotion, but all emotion lowers your logic. So your emotion has an onset, and then you're in the state, and then there's an offset, and it depends. If you think of anger, some people like me, I'll get angry very quickly, and I'll go to like 10 out of 10 anger, but I'll be there for no time at all, and then come straight back down in a steep cave. It's like a mountain. So at that 10 out of 10, I'll be vile and angry and annoy everyone, but I'm very quickly out of it and then going, why is everyone still upset? Yeah. Whereas my friends, some of my friends who burn less hot than me, will have a slow onset of emotion, but stay there and simmer, sometimes for years, and then slowly come down, right? Yeah. And so there's only, strictly speaking, certain emotions that really are classed as emotions. There's arguments among academics what they are, but it doesn't help anyone in our game to have any empathy at all with what a Vic feels. You don't want to know what your mark feels. So you empathize with the mark to the point that you con them, and then you back off and don't think about it. And I might say that would apply more widely to the industry, but we don't want to go there this evening.
Do we not?
I think
we're allowed.
Worst and most emotionally destructive social engineering I've ever seen has been romance scams and that sort of over messaging, although they do speak on the phone and stuff like that, but kind of just based over messaging, the relentlessness that is, I'm sure in that case it's not just putting blocks together. You are constantly turning the whatever it is that people turn when pressure gets worse. I can't remember the name of. But yeah, that to me is the sort of the most horrendous emotional thing you can do using an email in most respects.
Horrible, but you know what? I'd agree, right? But I've seen adoption scams.
Yeah,
I've seen organ donation scams. The massive heads up is that bad people do bad things and don't give a fuck about who were hurt and how badly. Even if like I always say, you say, there's people who'd sell their own grandmother, and everyone goes, we've heard that story. It's they'd sell their own granny. But then what if I said to you, there's people who'd sell their own grandmother and yours for £1?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like how cheap these things are.
Yeah, it's always questioned every time a hospital is targeted, is there no decent, why are they doing this? Here's a petition to say stop doing it. And it's like, well, that's not how it works for them. They will literally cut off your air supply if they could get money out of it. So it's, yeah.
Well, that was cheerful.
Always happy to bring some joy.
Just sprinkle a little bit of sparkle into everyone's evening.
So James, what emails make you emotional? One's from your tailor, one's from...
I'll be honest, recently...
Doubt Trace.
The Royal Mail one that's been going around?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, $1.99, $2.99, varies between the two. Loads of them going out.
For it.
I nearly fell for it. I nearly fell for it a week after I heard about it. So I was perfectly well aware. And then one morning I woke up and I had this message, and I was just so frustrated that Royal Mail was going to charge me a redelivery fee that I nearly went through and nearly fell for it before I caught myself.
Not notice it was far too low a fee to be the Royal Mail.
Yeah, it's normally what, £17?
Far too straightforward.
Hacks?
What, I just click and pay? That can't be right. Surely I have to log into 7 systems.
But I could actually feel the moment where my brain caught up with what was going on and stopped me from hitting the link.
Yeah.
So that's been the big one recently. And then the others, the standard scareware ones. Every now and then,
you've been watching naughty stuff, and
yeah, I get loads of those across various different accounts, some of which aren't even.
Do you get them,
my
Sharka?
accounts.
Do you get?
No,
hello, Mr. Sharka.
We've got your webcam images.
I've got some very old email accounts which have obviously spread all over the internet, and I get them across all of these things regularly. And every now and then, just when I'm not paying much attention, it is like a punch to the gut when you start reading one, and then brain catches up. That was what made me think, okay, is it preying on that emotional response? Because if it's getting me to have that gut-wrenching feeling,
of course it is.
Yeah, I think when it was, especially if you still didn't know it, I think that was a really creative way, to be perfectly honest and objective, of using breach data, having a password that didn't work anymore and an email address. It was it was pretty inventive to have done that, because it's guilt, and there's all sorts of stuff in there, isn't there? And they were also making it so it can be sent out from accounts that have been taken over, because it says, if you reply to this, we will send it out to 5 of your contacts. Now, I don't have, I've got 4 contacts, I think, so, and I would have known they were lying at that, and the fact that I'd never watched stuff like that. But it was, I think that was a really sort of, also it'd be interesting in a way to know who had gone through and paid. Are these, people who are, watching illegal stuff or something, or even feeling more guilty and type things? It's,
what did throw me
thinking out
though,
loud.
A few years ago, I started receiving them in German.
Right. That from your 80s vibe.
I don't speak German, just to be clear. I've never actually been to Germany. There is no reason to target me in German, but I started getting them. I think I've got a Spanish one around somewhere.
Well, that's probably part of what we were saying, that some of those scammers, they just send out things without thinking. I was targeted by a campaign from a local post, a Swiss post here, also in German, while I don't speak German, but also in French, and it was strange because it makes absolutely no sense to send me more or less the same email from the same post saying more or less the same stuff, but so it's not like one email saying, okay, you owe us money for the delivery of this packet. So that was kind of strange. So I think that exactly is what we were saying at the beginning, that they just try things and they send it out with, or as Jenny says, Mr. Sharka. And then all the incorrect and typos and incorrect grammar. That's one way to spot it. But as James B says, there might be, some of them might plan it in a way that it reaches you maybe at certain time and makes you just enough angry where it's the amygdala in your brain that decides before the rest of your brain can think. So I think there is a thought put into it, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just like emails that are going around with nonsense in languages we don't speak.
I get lots of really aggressive ones.
Really?
Just like, why haven't you answered my request for cash?
That from your husband?
Yeah. Why not? And you just go oh God, go stop. Stop. asking me. I get some of those, and I get the, you know, all the, like, you just sort of look and I think, oh. At one point I was thinking, should we start rating them, you know, on different scales, like so creativity, and then I thought, why would you poke the beast? Really, we've got enough to worry about without tempting people to do better. So I just thought, maybe not. Maybe not.
But might be interesting to have a group, maybe just internally, to like share the scam, the fish of the week, and everyone could like come.
Don't you be organising them secret societies all the time, Sharka.
You could do some sort of award ceremony where the fish of the week can pay to win.
I think we've got
featured.
enough awards ceremonies, don't we? I feel like we have. I keep getting that, talking of spam type of rather than fish. I keep getting those emails saying, "Oh, if you pay us a fortune, you can we'll award you this."
But is that spam rather than phishing? Is that actually just another way of phishing?
I think it's just spam. It's marketing rubbish, isn't it? It's like, if you give us this much money, you can have an award that's X, Y, Z. And I also get spam saying things like, I got one a while ago saying, social engineering is the most common attack vector for cyber criminals. Your organization needs to know about it. Would you like some training?
Did you take up the training?
I did not. But I thought these people were meant to do research.
Well, as with you, for sure, that you should have just answered with the link to your website.
No. Yeah, no, I think, but well, it was on LinkedIn. I mean, I've had them on LinkedIn, is the thing.
Let's look at my.
And I get a lot on LinkedIn that says things like, you know, I'm clearly like not a huge organization, and they say things like sales training for your, you know, with a discount for more than 100 salespeople and stuff like that, as if I'm like fucking GE. Sorry, I swore.
Do you get the ones where they say we can give you 1,000 leads or 100 leads, and just think, I really don't need 100 leads right now.
I'm not really sure. Like, but that's a way. How many? That's what James is saying about throwing. You know, it's like phishing emails, really, in a way. That's just junk as a spam. But it's throwing out the net. It's literally where the term comes from. It's just throwing out the net to as many people, just playing the percentages. You're going to catch someone off guard. And to me, that's a completely different thing than a spear phishing campaign. Because say spear phishing, people think it means a certain thing, but I would just mean any form of social engineering that is a tailored, researched approach.
Yeah.
So you're either doing that or you're cutting and pasting.
Yeah, and if you're cutting and pasting, it's Dragnet rather than
it's Dragnet, and you're still gonna catch me. And that I always feel like that was James's point originally. You're still gonna catch people, otherwise they wouldn't bother. But it's less. I always say it's like having a shotgun and just doing the Hollywood firing, which anyone who wears the weapons normally, but the Hollywood wobble on a gun or a sniper fire. And I haven't time for that one. Scattergun. You need a sniper fire for a target. But, they're probably richer than me doing the bloody Dragnet, James.
Well, apparently they're expecting cybercrime to be a $6 trillion industry in a few years. So.
In a few years?
Isn't it?
Is it 3 now?
I thought it was 4.5 this year.
4.5? Is that dollars?
Yeah, not real money.
Shouldn't it be going down if we're getting safer? Or doesn't that work like that? Are we not getting? I don't know. Is that the wrong question to ask, James? You make people safer, don't you?
Someone highlighted today, and I spotted that Pew Research have just released their report saying they think the biggest global threat after global warming, so number 2, is cybercrime.
Right.
I'm not sure whether I'd put it there, but can't go wrong with a bit of alarmism.
I would, because probably the other areas that I'm involved in, which is the industrial control systems and the healthcare, And that's unfortunately there are common traits into what are the vulnerabilities in there: legacy systems, outdated operating systems, and then all the the breach life cycle, which is like the time that it takes to detect the breach and deal with the breach, is in these, it's about 3 months more than in normal IT networks. And here we are talking about stuff where really, if something happens, people are dying. So I would from that point of view, I would probably put it there.
I think I agree, and I mean, as if you look at the hacks, these mega hacks that are coming out, SolarWinds being one of them, and attacks on infrastructure, it's the potential to do an awful lot of damage. It's the potential to do damage really unparalleled, to the point where if you want to talk about frightening people and emotion, even the media kind of play it down. And I think it's mostly because they don't understand it. But if you were to understand the real extent of that SolarWinds, for example, if just everyone understood it, if they had more coverage, when you think about it, it didn't really have the coverage it warranted. You know, you had all 5 branches of the US military, you had every branch of government, Secret Service, FBI, law enforcement. There was nothing that wasn't touched by it. 18,000 different companies and organizations touched by that one hack. That's, I can see why they say it. It's absolutely huge. It's something I haven't heard before, and it's an alarming thing to say. But the fact that it touches on everything, I think you can see it. If that Florida water plant hack had been successful, you're talking taking down whole cities. I was working on critical national infrastructure projects years ago that was talking about that. I was talking about whole cities and you know, various related threats based on geographic wipeout, and that's what you're talking about, I suppose. So I mean, I can see that it would be true. I'd agree. It's just that we see it as 1,000 tiny cuts, as opposed to, you know, that one big thing that kind of that does it.
I think
all
it lacks the, you know, here is the tangible result of that. I think because it doesn't have that. Well, I'm not going to say explosion, but you know, that kind of really dramatic. I did say it then after saying I wasn't going to say it. But you know, the very dramatic thing that hopefully, but you know, might happen one day. That's the kind of thing that seems to be at the minute. People, you can go, this was really bad, but you know, their TikTok still works and they can still send an email, and you know, everything for them hasn't changed at all, and never does, no matter how many stories they read, hopefully anyway. So there's a kind of disconnect between their beliefs.
I promised this wouldn't go on past 8 o'clock, which we're coming up to. I'm just going to say with SolarWinds, the big thing that worries me isn't that it's the first of many, but that it wasn't the first of many.
Yeah, because if you've learned something that worked there, you would have tried it in different places as well, wouldn't you? In maybe countries where
or already have.
Yeah, you test it all along, and I'd say that was true with just for any of the physical security and you know non-cyber security people. You know that the same thing's true with terrorism as well. You know, the ones that for every one that gets through, there's so many that are defeated. So you know it can be alarming. There's a reason why everyone doesn't know the ones that got away, I guess.
Right, on that happy note.
So yeah, happy, joy.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. We've got a cat.
Folks. Special guest.
Oh!
Yeah, it's called Beast.
He's about to prove it. Look. Excellent.
He wants feeding, I think.
I'd do it if I was you. Based on
honestly,
that evidence.
He puts one little claw out and just taps it on you to get fed.
Yes.
Right, so we are ending on a happy note.
Sorry, yeah, we're ending.